Te reo ererangi o te mānia. This episode was produced in Otatahi by Plains Media, with support from New Zealand On Air.
You've heard the dragons roar. Now it's time to hear the ocean's answer. Welcome back to Avis's next adventure, the continuation of Avis and the Promise of Dragons. I'm Audrey Worsley, your guide into the deep. This is Avis and the Call of the Kraken by Healther McQuillan, published by Ahoy, an imprint of the Cuba press in 2024. Ready? Hold your breath. The sea is waking. As Humbert launched himself into the air, Avis peered down, trying to see beneath the wrinkled, sparkling ocean surface, down into the depths where sunlight could not reach. Humbert, we need to talk to Melinda. I'm just a kid, and you're still a young dragon. We have to warn someone that danger is coming. There are people on that drilling rig. But Melinda said we weren't allowed to talk to Mother. She'll be angry with us. I'd rather Melinda was angry with us now than angry later when the colossal squid things have hurt a whole lot of innocent people. What if they only hurt guilty people, just the ones who are making all the underwater noises? Asked Humbert. We have to at least give people the chance to stop, drilling and the booms and things. And noisy ships, added Humbert. Well, they're necessary though, aren't they? For travel and trade and... Are they? I don't know. That's why we need to talk to Melinda. She'll have a better idea about what's right and what's wrong. Even as she said it, Avis wasn't sure that's true. She used to think adults reliably did the right thing, but now she could see the world was full of evidence of adults making bad decisions and doing things they knew were damaging. Her thoughts were interrupted by a terrible screech, which ripped across the air from the far side of the island. "Princess!" cried Humbert. He turned his head and neck, his body following in a sudden swerve. Princess shot over the treetops like a red arrow, then turned into a dive with another terrifying scream. "Melinda's under attack!" Avis clearly understood her cry. Humbert followed Princess's swooping path towards the scrubby trees behind the hut. There was nowhere for a dragon to land, but as they swooped low, Avis peered through the spaces where the canopy of branches didn't quite meet. She saw Melinda dodging between thin trees and clumps of bushes. As Avis watched, she thought she saw a large beak on the bobbing head of something the size of a large dog. It made a peculiar, demented gargling sound. "A wild turkey!" Avis gasped. "If I'd been able to eat that chili chocolate, I could sizzle the horrid thing." Humbert banked for another swoop. "No chili chocolate, and that's final," said Avis. "What can we do? There's nowhere to land there." Princess swooped by with another ear-shattering screech, nothing like her silvery singing voice. But neither the screeching of Princess swooping overhead nor Avis yelling from Humbert's back deterred the turkey in its pursuit of Melinda. "It's up to me," thought Avis, although she didn't feel brave at all. "Humbert, if you can get low enough, I can slide off. You and Princess fly back to the sandbank and walk back via the track. Only if there's no other way, then the chili chocolate is in Melinda's pack." Humbert loosened the grip of his underscales. Avis kept a hold of the ridges on his back and slid her legs to one side. She hardly had any time to think before her feet were dangling over the treetops. She'd done junior parkour at a holiday program the previous summer, before she had dragons to worry about, and there she'd learned to drop from a height and roll to absorb impact. She hoped she remembered it right. She took a deep breath. "Go as low as you can." As Humbert skimmed over the gap in the branches above the path, Avis let go. Her tummy and chest slid across Humbert's scaly side, and for a moment she was in mid-air. She pulled in her elbows, tucked her neck in, and landed on the balls of her feet in a soft bush litter and ferns, her wet shoes and socks squelching. She pushed into a roll so that her right shoulder took her over the ferns towards a mossy, rotted log. Fragments of the log broke away when she hit it, revealing pale wood crumbs and the holes of hoo-hoo grubs. The turkey swiveled its scaly neck. A black eye stared right back at her. "Avis, look out!" cried Melinda. Avis scrambled to her feet as the bird ran towards her on scabby legs, its neck extended, fan-shaped tail bristling. It was jabbing its beak, cackling in the back of its throat, a high-pitched kss sound that got louder as it got closer. Red wattles, which fell in lumpy folds from a blue-blistered beak, waggled as it ran. Although it had the gait and attitude of an attacking velociraptor, Avis told herself it was only a bird. "Down, boy," she said as if she was speaking to Theo. The wild turkey did not understand the command. It skidded with its feet forward, lifted into the air with its wings, and kicked Avis square in the chest with both feet. Avis tumbled against the rotted log. It crumbled beneath her, covering the heels of her hand in damp log dust. A plump hoo-hoo grub fell at her feet, squirming in the dappled sunlight. She picked it up. The turkey turned its eye on her again. With the hoo-hoo grub flat on her hand, she offered it to the turkey. It made a wobbly gobble noise in its throat and darted its sharp beak towards the treat. Avis pulled her hand away and enclosed the grub. "You have to be nice," she said. "Try again." She held her hand out. This time, the turkey took a slow step forward, lined up with its neck, and, with a sharp peck, took the grub in its beak. It backed off and swallowed it down. Avis reached behind her along the log, only taking her eye off the turkey for a split second to find another grub, bigger than the first. The turkey was advancing slowly. Again it snatched the offered grub. "Look," Avis said to the turkey. "Here, there are plenty more where that came from." She stepped to one side, edging around the log as the turkey moved to peck at the soft grubs. She made a wide circle to meet up with Melinda. "Brilliant work, honey," said Melinda. "You're such a natural with animals. Employing you as a pet sitter was the smartest thing I ever did." "Food is an excellent motivator," said Avis, quoting the dog training book she'd read to help her with Theo. At the front of the hut they were met with 2 puffing dragons. "You're safe now," purred Princess, nuzzling into Melinda's neck. "I didn't mean to abandon you." Princess's voice was softer and more melodious than Avis had imagined. "Thank you, Avis, for saving Melinda from the terrible dinosaur." Melinda laughed. "Dinosaur?" "That's what Melinda said Avis told him," said Princess, looking miffed at being questioned. "It looked like a velociraptor," said Avis. "That's not too far from the truth," said Melinda. "Turkeys and chickens are descendants of dinosaurs. I spotted a flock of turkeys earlier, but they didn't seem so aggressive. Maybe I got too close to some chicks, and that one felt threatened." Avis remembered Melinda explaining how behaviours were based on feelings, and feelings were based on thoughts. This turkey had felt threatened, and thought he needed to protect his chicks, so his behaviour was aggressive. Was that why she had been so aggressive with Lulu? Was it because she had been worried about Humbert? And what could she have been thinking when she hit Archie? She could hardly use Humbert as a reason there. She sighed. Her brain was tired, and her feet were wet and cold. Melinda was filling her bottle from the tap on the side of the water tank. The island may have a few defects, but at least it has a good water supply. There's a pipe running from one of the creeks which keeps the tank full if there's not enough rain. What did you find in all your explorations? There are plenty of pests to eat, but I couldn't catch any because there were too many trees and nowhere to land. I'm hungry, Princess whined. Avis realised she was hungry too. Humbert sniffed Melinda's backpack. If you let me eat that chili chocolate, then I could roast that ugly turkey for your dinner. Melinda looked through her backpack, keeping the chili chocolate well out of Humbert's reach, and found 2 chicken drumsticks left over from lunch. She tossed one to each Princess and Humbert, who swallowed them whole. I saw a few tins and things in the kitchen cupboard. We may have to raid it if we're going to be stuck here until dark, Melinda said. Princess was still very visible, and a solid, deep, shiny red. She cast her eyes towards Humbert and Avis, and asked, Did you 2 discover anything interesting? I didn't see you near the lake. Avis wasn't so sure she liked hearing Princess speak after all. Neither Humbert nor Avis wanted to be the ones to tell Melinda they'd disobeyed her very clear instructions. Oh dear, what have you done? Melinda looked from one worried face to the other. You tried to talk with the Kraken, didn't you? No, said Humbert, including Melinda in the frequency. Yes, said Avis. I mean, no, we didn't try, we succeeded. Humbert's eyes swirled with pride. I used what you taught me about frequency and amplitude and sound waves, and we managed to understand each other. Her name's Mother. Melinda pressed her lips together, as if trying to hold back her reaction. She didn't look angry, though. Her eyes were twinkling. Melinda took a deep breath. Well, I'm very cross that you did something so dangerous, especially after I had expressly forbidden it. You are very proud of how clever we are, interrupted Humbert. I'm glad you're still alive, despite your recklessness, said Melinda, and you're super curious to hear about every single detail, interrupted Avis. I am, said Melinda. I want to tell you, but I made a promise. Oh, Avis, promises are such tricky things, Melinda said, glancing at Princess. So you can't tell anyone else. Melinda took a deep breath. Then she crossed her heart and zipped her lips. It wasn't a proper promise, but Avis and Humbert were excited to tell someone all the details they could remember, especially someone that would believe them. Melinda added scientific detail to all that Mother had shown them in the tier, naming different ocean depths, the twilight zone, the midnight zone, the abysmal zone, and the Hadal zone, and taking a moment to explain bioluminescence. At one point, Melinda exclaimed, "Oh, she's so clever using red as camouflage. That's the first colour that disappears from the spectrum out of sunlight." But mostly she said, "Amazing," or "Crikey," or "I'd never have thought." At the end of the story, Melinda said she needed to have some time to think about how to stop the drilling that was upsetting the sea creatures. "Leave it with me," she said, advising Avis not to worry, because this was not something a kid should have to deal with. Avis was relieved. She had enough to worry about with a growing dragon, problems at school, and Lulu. Vengeful sea monsters were too much on top of all that. She hung her wet shoes and socks on the wire mesh of the veranda, and Melinda threw her a towel to dry her feet. "Next, we need to sort out our basic needs," she said. "Water, warmth, food," said both the dragons at the same time. "Jinx," said Humbert, and then had to explain how Jinx worked to Princess, which showed Avis, once again, how much he was learning. There was plenty of water in an outside wash tub for the two thirsty dragons. From the kitchen cupboard, Avis and Melinda retrieved a packet of crackers, a large tin of beans, spaghetti and peaches, and a smaller one of smoked fish. A handy tin opener was attached to the walls. They gave a large tin of spaghetti with meatballs to each dragon, and opened a smaller tin of fish for themselves, which they spread on the crackers. "I'll make sure to replace everything if the sale doesn't go through," said Melinda, "but I hope it does, because this is the best place I can think of for endangered lizards and dragons." "Even with a dangerous reef, and stinking penguins, and sandflies, and the Matagori, and the demented turkeys?" asked Avis. She didn't mention the vengeful sea monsters off the coast. "Actually, because of all those things, they'll ward off unwanted intruders. It's very private, and Princess and Humbert can supplement their diet with fresh meat. I'm going to make an offer, provided you will agree." Humbert and Princess both had tomato sauce on their snouts, so splatters of sauce hit the ground when they nodded. "We like it," hummed Humbert. "Once we make some clearings, we'll be fine. And the sandflies haven't bothered us at all since you dragons got here," added Avis. "Maybe you're a natural repellent," suggested Melinda. "Or they're just terrified of us," Humbert rumbled, looking smug. Thinking about the sandflies made the bites from earlier itch. There was one on the inside of Avis's wrist that she could not stop scratching. "You'll make it worse, honey," said Melinda. "How?" Avis stifled a yawn. "Do you want me to explain about serotonin and how that activates GPR neurons and—" "Some other time," said Avis, yawning again. "For now, I'll just believe you." She gave one last scratch and pulled her sleeve down over her wrist. The sky was lighting up in magical golden colours again. Avis realised she'd been up there and active longer than the sun had been in the sky. Waves of tiredness washed over her. She looked at Princess. Her shining dragon body was still solid and visible. "We need to get home," Avis said. "Thea will be worried." "It's almost dark enough," said Melinda. "There's just one more thing I want to show you before we go." She looked at the two dragons. The path will be too narrow for our natural insect repellers, so can you two wait for us at our landing site? She turned back to Avis, that twinkling-eyed grin of hers. Cover up, honey. We'll be okay once the sun has gone down altogether. The sandflies can't see then. I've got a torch for getting back. Avis wondered what Melinda was so excited about, and though her body was weary, her mind was awoken by her curiosity. She pulled on her spare pair of dry socks over the bottom of her thermal pants and tucked in her t-shirt up to her shorts. She zipped her sweatshirt right up and pulled her hoodie over her head and tied the cord around her neck. Melinda smeared insect repellent around the areas of her face that showed. "Why don't we just wear helmets and netting again?" asked Avis. "You want to be able to see clearly." "See what?" "You'll find out." With the hut locked up and their rubbish stowed away, Melinda led Avis back to the jetty and took a path down the outcrop of rocks. Sandflies gathered around them, but didn't come too close. Melinda paused, looking out over the darkening sea. She spoke in a hushed tone, her voice barely audible. "No noise now, we don't want to disturb them. Their hunters put it first. Look for darker patches in the water." Avis sat down on a rock. "Penguins?" she breathed. "Little penguins." "Korora," whispered Melinda. She pointed towards the waves. "Here they come." The first wave of tiny penguins came riding in on the surf. They tumbled onto the stones and quickly formed themselves into a huddle moving forward. Melinda leaned in close. "They're checking for predators. A single penguin could easily get picked off by a wild cat or ferret." The tiny birds hop-waddled up over the rocks, shaking water from their feathers. Avis hugged her arms across her chest, more to stop it from exploding with happiness than because of a twilight chill. Avis tapped her arm and pointed out to sea, at another wave of penguins, dipping and rising like dolphins as they... Melinda tapped her arm and pointed out to sea at another wave of penguins, dipping and rising like dolphins as the waves hit the shore, then floundering to their feet. They worked together, forming an arrowhead of moving bodies as they located their nests above the tide line. Melinda explained that they either excavated burrows or built their nests in rock crevices or under logs, or even under huts and houses if they were handy. Wave after wave they came, until it was too dark to see, and Melinda gently tugged Avis's arm. By the light of her torch they made their way back up the track. As she walked, Avis was thinking about the lizards Melinda had mentioned, the native ones with the Māori names that were in legends but never seen. An island sanctuary like this could be just the sort of place where they could be secretly living. She went back through the secure gate and met the dragons on the sandy landing site. Avis yawned. "You can sleep all the way back," hummed Humbert. "I'll make sure you don't fall." A scrabbling of sparrows in the gutter of Melinda's house woke Avis. The sun was barely up, but she needed to pee, so she couldn't just pull the blankets back over her head. In the bathroom, she looked in the mirror. There were a few red lumps on her face from the sandfly bites. Another red lump on the side of her nose. A zit. She scrubbed at her face with a cloth, but the red lumps remained. "I'll just say it's a sandfly bite, though." After the bathroom, she visited the kitchen. Her tummy felt empty and her mouth felt dry. All she remembered from the flight back was the cold, and how she'd huddled against Humbert's back so the scales had gripped her sweatshirt and held her snug. So snug she'd fallen asleep soon after takeoff. Two curious things had happened as they had been leaving the island. One, Princess had sung a farewell, which had made Avis think of a stream deep in the jungle, gurgling over mossy rocks and flowers opening their petals in sharp snowy mountain tops. Two, her dragon tear had vibrated with a reminder from Mother. Thrum. "No noise now. We don't want to disturb them. Thrum. Seasick. Children want stop them." Avis tipped cornflakes into a bowl, then opened the fridge for milk. There was a familiar sensation as she lifted the milk bottle. When she poured it out onto the cornflakes, only a trickle came out. "I can't even blame Bruno this time," she thought. She knew there was a $10 note and a handful of coins in the small purse her father had left for her while she was away. She hadn't spent any of it, and her dad was already back in the country. She'd be home with him again that very night. She wished he was here now, though, not in Auckland with his good mates do. She worried about all the bad influence things they might be doing. Avis dressed, then tiptoed out the back door and slipped a leash onto Theo's collar. He was delighted to be offered an early morning walk. They trod quietly past the tunnel house where the two dragons lay sleeping and headed out the gate to Papalu's dairy. Mrs. Papalu was stocking the fridge with freshly delivered milk when Avis opened the door. The bell chimed. "Oh, Avis," Mrs. Papalu said, "you are an early bird today, especially after your big adventures yesterday. Noah and Lulu have just popped out on an errand." Avis wondered how much Mrs. Papalu had been told. Everything, it seemed. Oh well, Mr. Papalu had said he couldn't keep secrets from his wife, but it turned out she hadn't believed a single word. Not at first. Noah and Lulu took a long time to convince me. I'm still not sure they weren't pranking me. Maybe I'll see for myself one day. "You can't tell anyone else," said Avis. The danger of sharing the secret hit her again. It would be okay, though. Melinda said she was going to deal with Mother, so Avis pushed away any thoughts of tubular bodies and waving tentacles. She just needed milk. Mrs. Papalu nodded. "I understand. We know all about secrets, Noah and I." "Did Ms. Child tell you about her classroom secret?" "There was a trapdoor under my desk. And that's how I first got to know Noah. When we were hiding from the police." Avis opened her eyes wide. "What had you done? You were just school kids." "Have you heard of the dawn raids, Avis?" Avis shook her head. "When our parents came here from the islands, this country needed workers. But later, the government decided to send us back, even children who'd been born there. The policemen went right into islanders' homes and dragged them from the beds early in the morning, the dawn raids. And they went to schools to grab people's kids. So Ms. Child helped us hide." "Did anyone know you there?" she asked. "Not many people, but we were lucky. There were good teachers at our school, and a caretaker had built hiding places in the classrooms. The office lady told the policeman we hadn't turned up that day. Noah and I hid under the space under Miss Child's desk, in the science room, for an hour, praying, listening to the heavy boots of policemen up above." "So, are you illegal immigrants?" "Not us. We kids were born here. Our parents had got their papers sorted out. We were all allowed to stay. Our parents were hard workers and their bosses didn't want to lose them." "But you broke the law, and Melinda did too." This didn't surprise Avis. She knew Melinda wasn't the most law-abiding person. It was a bad law. Eventually the government saw that too, especially when people protested. Avis's head ached trying to understand how laws, which were supposed to be made to make things work properly, could be bad. Maybe it depended on your point of view, like the drilling rig. Her stomach growled. Mrs. Papalu handed her the milk and took out the payment. As Avis turned to leave, Miss Papalu called her back. "Here, some chocolates for your secrets. My treat. These bars are about to expire anyway. We had excess since Bruno went away." She handed Avis 2 peanut slabs. "I don't know if they can eat peanuts," said Avis. "They could be allergic." "Then you eat them," said Mrs. Papalu. Avis ate both bars on the way home, wondering about things like whether hiding people or dragons from the police was bad or good or something in between. As the chocolatey warmth made its way down her throat, she figured that it depended on whether the people or dragons you were hiding were bad or good, and whether the reasons you were doing it for were bad or good. Melinda had hidden Mr. and Mrs. Papalu when they were children, so they could stay in the country where they were born. She had hidden the lizards she was trying to save from extinction, and she had smuggled 2 dragon eggs past biosecurity to hatch them somewhere safe. That could put the whole country at risk. What if Humber and Princess breed and this country becomes overrun with dragons? A shudder ran down her spine. 2 dragons were problem enough. And that wraps up today's tale on Spin Me a Tale. But don't wander too far. Join me next Saturday at 9:30 a.m. on Plains Media, broadcasting on 96.9 FM for the next episode in our journey. If you want to relive the magic, all past episodes are waiting at plains.org.nz. Let your imagination stay wide awake.